this evening. This is the Two Old Guys program. I'm Gordy Caverly. I'm one of the old guys.
And I'm John Foster, the other old guy. This is episode 6 of Two Old Guys. And we have gotten over some technical difficulties, but having worked through it, we have been able to invite a guest onto the show tonight. The guest is my brother, Mike Foster, who hails from Connecticut. And we tend to refer to Mike as the lone conservative on the East Coast. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about that, and Mike can explain some of the why that's not totally true, but we'd also like him to talk a little bit about what it's like coming from an environment where you might have yourself in the minority on a regular basis. So, welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to join you, but I should say up front that I would not classify myself as one of the old guys. The two old guys, only as a younger brother.
Right. That's true. That is absolutely true.
Your lead-in was very accurate, though. Having moved to Connecticut some 41 years ago.
That puts you in the old guy category now. You just dated yourself.
Older guy.
Yeah, right.
That.
Okay.
But your original premise is right on. It is very much a liberal bastion, I guess, if you will. If you look at New England and look at the makeup of the senatorial and the representatives, it's for the most part very liberal. In fact, in Connecticut, as far as national offices go, being senators or representatives, there's not a single Republican.
Oh, great. Great.
That sounds like an emergency room 911 situation.
Yeah, right.
Well, that holds true, I believe, for Maine, for New Hampshire, for Vermont, for Massachusetts, certainly Connecticut, and may well for New York, although I think there are some Republicans in New York. It's a much bigger state, and as you go further west, you probably run into some Republicans, but in the New York area, it's very liberal.
Right, yep. No question about it.
Yep.
So, Mike, why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? Well, I think historically, if you look at it, it hasn't, at least as far as Connecticut goes, it hasn't always been that way. Lowell Weicker was the governor here for a while. We did have some senator, and a Republican congressman or two since I have lived here. But I really couldn't tell you why. If you look at it on a local basis, let's say the makeup of some of the town governments or the makeup of some of the local state representatives and state senators, you find more Republicans and you find a little bit more conservative attitude. But when you get on a national scale, it tends to be liberal. And I actually don't have an answer as to why.
Huh.
You know, I've thought about this many, many times, and I've often wondered why that is. Because I think if you look at the demographics of liberal versus conservative, liberal tends to fall in the larger populated areas. As you go out into the rural areas or the wide open space areas, property owner type areas and stuff like that, they tend to become more conservative. And I don't know if that comes along with when you're in a high populated area, you might have more needs to take care of the poor, the sick, stuff like that. And that drives possibly liberal attitudes. And myself, when I was young, I was a staunch, hardcore right Republican. I've mellowed significantly since then.
Right.
I couldn't even talk to myself sometimes.
Well, your statement is correct. And again, looking at Connecticut, and understand that Connecticut is a very small state. I don't think we have more than 4 or 5 representatives, if that. But we do have 3 cities: Stamford, Connecticut, New Haven, which is where Yale is, and Bridgeport are the 3 major cities, and they are very, very Democrat, and they are very. Well, I wouldn't say they're very poor, but they do have their needy population,
Right.
and it tends to run very liberal.
Well, Michigan is a lot like that. If you look at where the population centers are, the urban areas, with the exception of Grand Rapids, most of those are either high need and they're also Democrats. They tend to vote that way over and over again between the people that live there, and they get union support and all that. As you move out in the state and you get into the less densely populated areas, and as Gordy said, in the rural areas, that's all red. I mean, it bleeds red out there. But because of the density and population in the urban areas, um, in federal elections, the state tends to go blue. So it's kind of weird.
Well, Connecticut has always voted very liberal. And understand also, in Connecticut and also in Massachusetts, tends to be quite a few universities.
Right.
You get a lot of young people coming in. You get a lot of thinkers, if you will, that tend to be on the liberal side. Now, that said, I will say that from a policy perspective, it does tend to be a bigger government, but there is a bit of a groundswell, at least in Connecticut, around some very conservative fiscal thinking.
Right.
So it's not all cut and dry liberal policy. There is room for negotiation and room for new thought, and what I would consider a little bit more conservative thinking from a budget and financial perspective, which the desperately needs.
Yeah, I've often asked myself through the years of watching the Liberal Party grow and the requirements of all the inner city type stuff. And I've often asked myself this question: what is wrong with being a conservative? Why is everybody seem to be against a conservative? I mean, if you tried to define a conservative, from my perspective, somebody that tends to want to try and have a budget, stay within a budget. I have to do that personally with my own finances. The government seems to be in a total flat runaway, and it doesn't matter whether it was a Republican president or a Democratic president. So I'm trying to figure out, why is everybody so dead set against conservative policies, but they're wide open for, let's just go tax and spend and whatever we want to do. And I'm sure there's different points on that, and I probably will never get the answer to that, but that's been something. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, unfortunately, the way that people get their information is very skewed. And it's very easy, and it's happening all the time, to paint conservatives with several different brushes. And unfortunately, there just aren't very many on the extreme side. I mean, I used to joke that I would listen to MSNBC a little bit in the morning, and then I would go to Fox News a little bit later in my drive, and then before I got to the office, I'd go to the Comedy Channel just to bring me back. It's very, very skewed. You've got painting on way on the left. You've got Fox News that tends to be way on the right, or at least much of it. But there's nobody in the middle, at least from a conservative perspective, that's talking about the things that you just said. That's talking about a little smaller government, reasonable finance, reasonable legislation, and let's negotiate and talk. It's really one or the other. And unfortunately, the way the media is presented to the American public and the media outlets, they tend to paint conservatives with a very, very lopsided brush.
Yeah, it's like the ugly American.
Yeah, to a large extent. You know, we were talking earlier about libertarians, and if you take some reasonable Republicans and put them together with the libertarians, you're going to get the Republicans of years ago.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
You know, we don't have Republicans anymore, or for that matter, Democrats anymore, that will work together to get something done. It's all about my way or the highway on the left, or my way or the highway on the right. There's nothing in between. There's no way to have a conversation and get anything done.
Yeah, it's become very partisan.
Yeah, I don't understand how we got to that point. And it's, you know, a lot of people are going to blame that on Trump, but this has been going on for decades. You know, I don't think it's, you know, it's, I'd love to hear somebody say, this is where we started to kind of deviate from, uh, you know, an environment where we could sit down and talk and, you know, work things out, get things
Yeah.
accomplished.
Well, if you go back to, oh gosh, what was his name? He was the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Tip O'Neill, you know, he got things done. And he got things done in an environment that was not entirely favorable to him.
Right.
But he had relationships on both sides of the aisle. And that's what's not done anymore. We don't have a Speaker of the House, we haven't in years, that has developed a working relationships on both sides of the aisle.
True.
And if you don't do that, it's not going to work.
I would agree.
That's a great statement.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
So let me ask this question. I feel a grooming happening in our colleges of the young minds that they can come into college totally neutral politically, and when they come out, they're on the left side of the pendulum, and even to the point of where we don't want any speakers in this place that have anything to do with a conservative, open viewpoint. I think that's one of the saddest things that's ever hit our colleges, that we no longer believe in free speech, freedom of your speech, being able to hold an opinion that's not necessarily an agreement with somebody else, but you could have an honest dialogue. You could have an honest debate. And when you're all done with it, you can walk away. Instead of throwing rocks, you shake hands and say, well, you know, I agree, you can be as wrong as you want to be, but I keep my point, but I understand you have your points.
And that's really unfortunate because universities used to be the place where you could go and have open dialogue. Yeah, and now that's totally changed, I think. I totally agree with Gordy. It's a kind of grooming that I hate to see.
You know, I'll tell you what, I would agree with you. I think we've seen over the last 10 years uh, the liberalization of our universities. And you're right, Gordy, if you're a conservative thinker and you want to speak at some of our universities, whether they're the university system in California or out here on the East Coast, it's going to be very difficult for you, and that's probably an understatement.
Yeah.
Some of them become very violent towards conservative speakers. But the one thing I think is also happening is that you get these kids that go into university and they get some indoctrination, if you will, if I can use that word, liberal indoctrination. And they go through their college years and they graduate and they tend to be on the liberal side for only a few years. Because eventually they're going to have to start making money and they're going to have to exist in the real world, and they're going to realize that everything is not as they thought it was. And they're going to start to learn that there's a difference between conservative thinking and liberal thinking. And they're going to figure out when they get their first paycheck, when all that money disappears.
Yeah, right.
And they start to think differently. So I agree with you. There's a lot going on in our university system, and I don't know how to get around it. But I give our graduating, seniors and our graduating MBAs and people that are going on to higher learning a little bit of credit for coming out and making their own way in a world that is neither all liberal or all conservative.
I mean, if you listen to people like Bernie Sanders and some of those people that are up there espousing, everything is free. Let's just let the government take care of you. Sooner or later, when you graduate from college, you realize that you're still in a capitalistic world, and that requires work, getting up every day and doing something. And you can sit on your butt as long as you want, but all you're doing is harming yourself. You're just falling back faster.
Well, you would think so.
And frankly, I have a problem with, as you described, Bernie Sanders and others that are his followers or people that participate in his way of thinking, where education should be free and everybody should get, a minimum, call it $1,000 a month for doing nothing, or doing something. They get the money anyway. I have a problem with that.
Oh, big time.
There's no way that is something that's going to survive. It's downright socialist.
Yeah, the government can print as much money as they want to print, but sooner or later, the bill comes due, and the young people are going to have to pay that bill. And when I think about the fact that, and you and I was talking before the show started about our political alignment, and we both tend to agree that we're probably libertarian with a little bit of sway, eat both sides, and that's where I think most of the politics have to be. But for me, I believe in capitalistic environment. I believe in a conservative environment, but I also believe in socialistic policies on a limited basis. Like, for example, I think our country is rich enough that we should never have a poor person that's living on the street. We should never have a veterinarian on the street.
Veteran?
A veteran? A veterinarian, yeah. Well, that's a short
Right,
veterinarian.
yeah, right.
Okay, I got injected today, so what? My point is, we have sufficient money. There should be a percent of income below that people are taken care of. You build facilities for them. If they want to live on the street, it's fine. If they want to come and get a meal or have a bed for the night, it's available, or a veteran can come in, or whatever. But the rest of them that want to earn their way, they can come in, they can learn trade skills in these places, stuff like that. That's the social side of me, and the libertarian side that says, you know, we're a wealthy nation. We ought to be able to take that. I mean, look at what did we spend in the last 10 years? $20 trillion, or 15 or 20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I would have to agree with both of you on that, except we've got how many millions of people that just walked away from their jobs in the last year? They,
Well, because we created an environment where they could.
right,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with you, Gordy. There was something on the news a couple of weeks ago about our military families, mostly women and children, in line to get food because they were food poor.
right.
I saw that and I said to myself, how can we not be taking care of our military families all the time?
Exactly.
Right
Why
on.
should they be hungry? Why should they have problems with housing? Why should they have problems with schools?
Right.
Of all the people that we should be taking care of, it's them.
They took care of us.
Right.
They and continue to take care of us, and those are the families that we're letting down.
Yep. Food, shelter, healthcare, the works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have to worry about it,
Yeah.
but they do
Well,
every day.
And it's exacerbated because the breadwinner isn't even present in a lot of cases. You know, if
Right.
they're deployed, there's literally nothing they can do to help the situation.
I agree.
It's got to be so frustrating.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
So, Mike, I know you're the middle of the road type guy, and I appreciate that. What kind of left policies do you see out there that you would support? I mean, I've shared mine with you, and I'm not uh, uh, against listening to anything else. Just because I think if 15 years ago someone gave me $20 trillion, I could have probably done a hell of a lot better job than what the government has done with it.
Well, it's a terrific question. I mean, if you look at some of the policies that are sort of in place right now, abortion being one of them. You know, I'm a good Catholic guy. I tend to take the approach, and actually, I think it was Joe Biden that said this not recently, sometime when he was either vice president or a senator. You know, he said, I don't believe in abortion for myself, but I also don't believe that government has a role in making decisions for women. And I tend to agree with it. I mean, as a Catholic, am I going to be in favor of an abortion? No. But do I feel that the government is in a position to say, here's what you should do, here's what you have to do?
No.
Right.
You know, that's one of them. The filibuster, I'm not sure where I go on that. Is it something that the Republicans actually need? Is it something that Democrats need? The Democrats are very much in favor of getting away from it now, even though in 2019 and 2020, the Democrats used the filibuster 368 times. That's the record.
Yeah.
That's the record. So they used it to their advantage then. They don't want it to be there for the Republicans to use. It's been in a part of our government for 200 years, I think, a long time.
Sure. Absolutely.
And it has worked because they used to talk to each other and negotiate and get things done.
Yes.
Right.
We're the highway, and the filibuster has become a tool with which they can bash each other with, and it doesn't make any sense.
You know, you think the filibuster would be the tool that would force them to come together
Right.
and hammer out their problems instead of using it as a hammer against the other side.
it used to be, and I could be wrong about this. I probably am, but I'll say it anyway. It used to be that a filibuster was something that you had to get into and you had to talk and you had to kind of keep going to stall legislation.
Right.
Sure.
Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
More or less,
Yeah. Right.
that kind of way. But if I'm not mistaken, now all you have to do is say, I want to filibuster that, and things kind of come to a grinding halt.
Right.
I don't know how that really works, but it seems to have it's taken on a different kind of a process, and it just doesn't seem right anymore.
I agree.
So, I could talk about this all night long. We can't stay forever. But what do you think the government is doing right?
What do I think the government is doing right?
Yeah, and that's a tough question. Okay.
You know, I think the government does a lot of things right. We defend ourselves well. Do we conduct wars well? We certainly spend a lot of money on it, so we're doing something right. Maybe not the most cost-effective way, but we're doing something right. We're spending money on infrastructure appropriately. Again, we're probably spending too much, but we're doing some things right. We've identified certain things that need to be improved, and money actually needs to be spent in that area. We're doing things. Did you ask what the federal government is doing, or what is
Right.
the government doing?
I just asked government. You could be state or federal, whatever.
I think the states. I think the states are doing some very good things. The federal government gets in the way.
Right.
Unfortunately.
I agree.
I'm not a big let's make everything wilderness and give back all the land and do this kind of a thing. But we have protected a lot of land, which I think is good. Our national parks are absolutely marvelous. That's not a good answer to your question. It's not a complete answer to your question, but that just gives you a sense for where I'm coming from.
It's okay.
Right. No, that's good. And I agree that, there are specific areas where I think we could get really down into the weeds on with, where the government does good things and where they do literally get in the way.
Sure.
I think the states could do a much better job on their own if the federal government would get out of the way in terms of education and sometimes infrastructure. Give them the money, let them do their thing.
I'll tell you where they have gotten in the way, my own opinion, is energy.
Yeah.
Is there any reason that we have stalled these pipeline projects? Is there any reason that we're not drilling anymore? We were at one point energy sufficient. We were self-sufficient as a country.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case anymore. We're buying oil from overseas. Oil prices are going up. I think they're at a 7-year high. It's I don't know what the cost of gas is in Michigan, but it's damn near almost $4 a gallon here.
It's about $3.30 here.
Yeah, $3.30 to $3.50, depending where you buy.
Right.
Yeah. I paid $3.85 yesterday.
Yeah.
The interesting thing I see about this, in light of the Green New Deal by AOC and whatever those idiots are talking about. Anyway, all these electric vehicles, I can't imagine driving one for 200 miles and stop and look for a charging station. And every charging station I've ever seen so far, and it's probably not always true everywhere, everyone's got a diesel generator backing it up.
Yeah.
Please help me with this formula, okay?
That's true.
I agree with you, and the end of the day, they will say, number one, the materials you need for these batteries are very hard to come by.
And expensive.
It takes 10 trucks of material to make one battery. It's crazy. And at the end of the day, you're right. You've got, batteries. What are you going to do with them when you've got to recycle those batteries?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy to recycle those batteries. It takes a lot of energy to manufacture those batteries and to keep them, going.
Yeah.
And it's a great idea. And the cars that they're manufacturing that are electric are beautiful. Some of the Tesla cars are beautiful cars, but it's not, in my opinion, at least where battery technology is today, it's not a long-term sustainable answer. When somebody comes up with a battery that will power a Tesla, and they can make it out of something that is readily available, inexpensive to get, inexpensive to process, and manufacture an inexpensive battery that has 500, 600 miles worth of charge, then I'm all in.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's recyclable.
Easily.
It's recyclable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another area I have that just kind of bothers the living snot out of me is sometimes our government and in their trade and what they're doing with rare earth elements, all the stuff that we need and require for our high-end chipsets and electronics and our digital equipment environment
And batteries.
and China has probably 85 or 90% of the resource. Why are we putting ourselves in a position to be owing to China in multiple different areas? Not just that.
And again, it comes down to, are we spending money in the development of alternative materials to the rare earth metals that we need today? There's got to be something that can replace those products, those rare earth metals, to produce the products that we need to produce.
Right. I agree.
But I agree with you, Gordy. Every time you turn around, somebody's manufacturing a product and they need a rare earth metal that comes from China.
Well, I know what we could use. We could use recyclable
So they're dependent upon China to be able to.
I know what we could use, Mike. We could use recyclable Democrats.
But that's it. They're expensive to recycle.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, you can't get all the bad stuff out of them. And I'm sure there's a few Republicans that fall in that vein too.
Right.
Absolutely.
But I think we're going to have to make this kind of a regular occasion. Having you on as our East Coast correspondent and working you into more of these podcasts because I know Gordy's got way more he hasn't even tapped into yet.
Oh man, I'm just saying two words: Southern border, COVID.
Right. Yeah. Oh goodness.
The COVID thing, I would love to get into that.
I would too. Put me in, coach. I don't smoke. I'll win the game for you.
Yeah. If you want to get down into the weeds, that's the conversation to have, and including the border.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Well, that's a good one. I would talk about that one too.
I know.
all right, good.
Guantanamo
Well,
Bay, the border.
right. I don't know if you were able to watch our last episode 5, but we actually did an episode where Gordy talked about his experience going through having caught COVID and coming out the other end.
I did. I saw.
So it's obviously he's got some real thoughts that are near and dear to his heart relative to COVID, and it's something that we could probably spend a whole show on that at some
Oh,
point if we
absolutely.
want to.
Just talking about the vaccination.
Yeah, and it's apparent that this thing isn't going away. So
No, it's not. In fact, let's see. Jack had it. Gabby had it.
right?
That would be my son and his girlfriend. Both of them are triple vaxxed. Lisa's got it.
Oh, no way.
Mary Claire's had it, or is getting over it. Garvin, her husband's got it. George, her 6-year-old, has it.
Wow.
Charlie, 4-year-old, is getting over it, and Madeline, who's 9 months, is also getting over it.
Wow.
So it's gone through our household and our extended family household, and all of us are vaccinated.
So are you staying up at Old Saybrook while everybody goes through this?
Well, it's funny. We talked about that yesterday, and I've been exposed to everybody, but I don't have it.
Have you ever had it?
No.
No.
Well, that's good. I had it once. I got natural immunities. I'm not vaccinated. I talked to 2 people today. They got it. They're both vaccinated. I lost an engineer last week, very sick, him and his wife. He's coming back tomorrow. He was vaccinated. He had it once before, was vaccinated. He got it the second time, he got really sick this last time, him and his wife both, and he even had his booster shot. I talked to a lot of people that are vaccinated, and they're getting sick. And I'm thinking, well, okay, I know what they stand on. They stand on, well, I mean, the vaccination used to be get vaccinated, you're not going to get this thing. Now it's morphed over to, well, get the vaccination and you won't die from it. You'll just get sicker in hell. And it won't stop you from transmitting, and it won't stop you from getting it. So
We may go into the weeds on this one, but if you get vaccinated, nobody's ever said that that's a guarantee that you're not going to get it.
okay,
They simply said you're not going to get as ill.
okay,
Right.
The incidence of death and hospitalization is substantially low. That's what I understand the case to be with people that have been vaccinated versus people that have not been vaccinated.
And that may be true, but the thing that just grinds me is you can't talk to anybody that can give you an honest, straight answer about anything related to COVID. They'll make up a story or something, but boy, I tell you what, this thing has been so convoluted from the very beginning. It just it's amazing.
Try and find. I guess it's like our government. I mean, almost 100% total lack of transparency. It depends on what report you listen to, what company you listen to, what medical advice, CDC, Michigan Health Department, yada 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 yada, and all their numbers are different.
Yeah.
So
Well, the one thing constant, and I think this holds true. I certainly believe it, is that getting vaccinated, there's no downside to it, unless you've got an allergy, unless you've got a reason.
You just stepped in the weeds, buddy. He's got it.
What's the downside to getting vaccinated?
this is another topic, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta, I don't wanna if we get
No,
too far
we
down
don't
the
have
weeds of
enough
that, it's gonna
time.
be
I'm
we'll
trust
be
me.
here all night. But
I could send you. I'll get your cell phone. I'll send you some videos from doctors that will tell you what the downside is of getting vaccinated.
You're breaking up. I couldn't hear you.
I'll get your cell phone from John.
Good one, good one.
That's okay. I've been beat up before. No big deal.
Just let me know anytime, Mike. I can mute him. So.
Right.
Okay.
That's funny.
This has been
All right.
This has been great, Mike. It
Well,
really has.
I think we have set the stage for our next couple of podcasts. So I think this is probably a good spot where we could wrap up for tonight.
I just got one more thing I'd like to say.
What?
Man, did Buffalo ever beat the hell out of the New England Patriots?
Yeah, true.
I'm a big Buffalo fan.
Oh, good. Well, that's right, because Jeff's up there, isn't he?
Right, and if you like a New York team, Buffalo is the only team that plays in the state of New York.
Yeah, true.
Giants play in New Jersey. The Jets play in New Jersey. So I discount them completely when I don't even call them a New York team.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's
The
funny.
Giants-
We have,
Patriots are New England. That's Boston, and that's way far away from-
Right.
yeah. Well, it was funny because we, obviously Jeff's up there.
Yeah.
Dave Richards' stepson is equipment manager there.
Oh, really?
And I just found out yesterday that one of the guys that works for Gordy, his nephew, is the president of the
Buffalo
club.
Bills.
No kidding.
So
Yeah, what a
we-
tie-in.
we've become big fans.
I would say so. If I were you, I'd be using that relationship. I'd be talking Super Bowl tickets here.
Yeah, I think it's so.
They're
Well,
I tell you what, they're liable to be in the Super Bowl too. They got a hell of a team.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the way they played the other day, really, it was spectacular.
Yeah.
That quarterback, Allen, is really something else.
Belichick just sat right there and said, "What in the hell just hit me?"
Yeah, right.
Are we in the same stadium?
Right.
Now, I do have one other thing that I want to comment on. Now, I'm looking at this picture of John and Gordy sitting next to each other, but on the closet behind you, there is what appears to be a yellow and blue hood.
Yeah, buddy.
If we could get rid of that, that'd be fine.
No.
Yeah, well,
Are you going to put that stupid hat on?
I'm not going to put it out. I just wanted to show you. This is for when we get a talkcast going that we don't agree on. I put the hard hat on, and I go Wolverine on it.
Well, I'm going to have to get some Spartan regalia to put on around here.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I don't want to talk about this. It's going to get published on YouTube. But I got a project coming up that we may get involved with at your alma mater.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Great.
We'll see.
All right.
But anyway, and I do have some green and white I can wear if we do.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
His wife has.
Cool. Yeah, right. It'll be real tight because it belongs to Sue.
Yeah, there'll be six-pack bulges everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know those six packs. Yeah.
Keep them warm.
Exactly.
Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you for the first time. I've heard a lot about you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show tonight.
And
I
for
would appreciate it. And I too have enjoyed the time, and I would look forward to having this conversation again.
we'll do it. We'll absolutely do it. And to our listeners, if you've enjoyed listening to this conversation, please scrunch the like button below and hit subscribe and the little bell there that will update you every time we post another podcast. And Mike will send you a couple of suggestions for the next conversations we'll have. And I really, really appreciate your joining us tonight.
And if our listeners, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say I appreciate it. The Eastcoast is always here and readily available to chat.
Cool.
You're going to be our expert on the East Coast, so we're going to rely on you and have you on frequently through the year just to keep us up to date. And to our listeners, I really appreciate your time tonight. If you have any comments on what Mike has said or John or I have said, please get in touch with us. I think the contact information is down below.
Not the contact, but you can put a comment down there and we'll take
get
a look at it and reply.
Yeah. So from this old guy, I appreciate your attendance this evening, and I thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to the next time.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.